So, hi everyone. Good evening. My name is Mordy Levine. Allow me to introduce myself. Welcome to Applied Mindfulness. I am the president of Jigme Lingpa Center, a nonprofit Buddhist center in San Diego led by Lama Lanang. Brief background about me before we begin. All people are still wandering in. I started to meditate in 1979 when I started to practice karate while I was in graduate school. Very traditional Japanese karate, and we had a short meditation at the beginning and end of class, and there was no instruction. I had no clue what I was doing. We were told to sit on our knees, very painful, and everyone closed their eyes for about a minute. And I couldn't understand why anyone would want to do it. The word mindfulness didn't exist. And then in the 80s, I had a Buddhist teacher who required that we meditate 3 hours a day for many years. And that's when I really learned how to meditate. And then eventually, after several intense years of doing that, I started to teach free meditation classes in New York City. Very interesting experience. No one had a clue what meditation was. And when you teach is when you really learn. I developed a meditation series called Meditation Pro, and I taught meditation to over 750,000 people around the world, either in person or through that series. I did a lot of traveling. I regard meditation the same way I view food and air, but I still feel like a beginner. And although I will say that even as a beginner, I still, after 35 years or so, I can count on probably 2 or 3 hands how many days I've missed. So I've been very consistent. I do have that in my favor. In addition to karate, I was an avid rock climber since the 1990s. And the climbing and the karate taught me a thing or two about fear and anxiety, which in Buddhism is known as suffering. And I can assure you, I am still a student of suffering. If you have a question, you can type it out in the chat box. And if we need to go back and forth, we can turn on your microphone. Also, let me see, turn the chat box on. There we go. Thank you.
Mordy.
Yes, go ahead, Martha.
There are some people that are writing to the webpage that are saying that they can't log in, but okay. Since I'm translating, I can't really go in and check because I would stop translating. So sure. Maybe someone could check.
Sure, maybe Cynthia Roscoe can check for us. Okay. That'd be great. All right. I think there's actually a lot of people. I'm looking the numbers, and there's a lot of people trying to get in at the same time. So, so here's what happens, by the way. Whenever anyone new comes in, even if it comes in at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, I lose my place and I have to go back to the beginning and start all over again. So just want to let you know that's what happens when you're late to my class. Sometimes my classes could be 20, 30 hours before we finish every time someone late comes in. Anyways, that's a joke. So if you have a question, you can type it out in the chat box. And if we need to go back and forth on one of your questions, great, then we can turn on your microphone, no problem. And if we do that, then it'd be helpful for me to see you, see your smiling face so I can have a meaningful interaction with you. So there's so much meditation out there, you know, we all know, religious meditation, mindfulness meditation, websites, apps, making a lot of money out there, which is great. But in my opinion, there's not a lot of connecting of the dots between meditation and tools on how to handle your life while you're not meditating, the other 23 hours or 23 and a half hours in the day. So that connection of what you do when you're meditating and the rest of your life, it's almost an afterthought. So, you know, you're done meditating and 2 hours later, you're already stressed at work, or you're stuck on a subway or a bus or traffic, or angry about something that annoyed you, who knows what. And when the meditation teacher tells you, you know, just do it for 5 minutes or just try it twice a day, they're absolutely right. There are benefits to that, of course. I'm a big believer of that. But how are you supposed to improve your life and overcome 20 or 30 years of conditioning and habit with only 15 minutes of meditation once or twice a day? It's just not going to happen. Not in today's environment. It's not going to happen. If we lived up in the mountains and we weren't involved in civilization, okay, sure, no problem. But that's not happening. So we move on. This guy here, his name is Alex Honnold. Okay, and he is about 2,000 feet up on El Capitan, which is, he's soloing it, means there's no ropes. And the very first time a group of people climbed all the way up, it was 2,900 feet, the whole route. It took them a week. And this guy, Alex Honnold, did it in 3 hours and 56 minutes with no ropes, okay? So is he feeling fear, anxiety? Would you feel fear? Is the fear he's feeling, is it necessary? Is it helpful? Is it appropriate? What did he do in his mind and his body to get there? And the way he got there was through years and years of climbing, training with ropes, safety devices, starting on very, very short routes with a rope, without a rope, over and over and over again. It didn't just happen overnight. And by the way, the name of that ledge, I don't know if it's on the slide or not, is called let's see, yeah, there we go. It's called Thank God Ledge, because most people, when they get to that point in the route, they're like, thank God we made it this far. So by the time he did it without ropes, he was in a very meditative state, not fearful. This is a great example of we are what we practice, and a great example of what seems impossible is very possible. So let's define stress, since that's what we're going to be talking about. Stress for today's conversation is any undesirable state of mind. Anger, jealousy, hatred, irritation, annoyance. You know, you got a whole list there. We could probably add another 30 words to it. Yuck. But the more we understand the details, the better we can deal with it. So stress, what is really underlying stress? Well, they say what's really underlying stress, and we're going to talk about this, is fear and ignorance. Fear impacts how we think, how we behave. It controls us. It reduces intimacy. It enters into our decision-making. It impacts our energy level, and I can go on and on. So what triggers fear or anxiety? It's a two-way conversation, so I want to hear from you. Feel free to chat English or Spanish. Would love to hear what triggers fear or anxiety for you. Happy to wait. While I'm waiting, I'll tell you what used to trigger it for me. I remember when I was in my 20s and didn't have a lot of money, when I opened the mail, the US mail, they have these envelopes. I don't know if you've ever seen that now, little stamps in the corner, and they mail it and the US Postal Service delivers it. Anyways, I used to open the mail, and that would trigger anxiety for me, getting the bills, because I didn't have any money. So that was a trigger for me. Anyone out there want to share? Go right ahead. So that's called an external trigger. Something, a sick pet. Yeah, thank you. I know all about it. We had 5 dogs. We now have 4. So I know what a sick pet is, can be very stressful. Absolutely. So these are examples of external triggers. Reading certain types of news, like the politics, emails from your boss or someone you broke up with or broke up with you. External triggers. Okay, there's something internal triggers. Well, how about a thought? Just a little thought. Just one silly, seemingly random thought can be a trigger to stress, anger, jealousy. A thought about how my colleague spoke with me, how my wife, my son, interaction, the party I went to 20 years ago, the meeting that I have tomorrow morning, just thoughts can trigger anxiety or fear. What I think might happen in the future can be stressful, or reliving the past. We all seek a sense of certainty, permanence, assurance, and if what we have now we like, we want to keep it that way, and vice versa. We like our preferences, and we don't like when our preferences or expectations aren't met. And this applies to small experiences. You like eating certain foods for breakfast, and when you run out of cereal or milk, well, you get annoyed. Someone ate your last cupcake, or you're not being treated with respect you think you deserve by those around you, get annoyed. And it applies to bigger experiences as well. Like, I like to know that I will be able to keep my job. I like to know I'll be able to pay my bills next month. Will my family and I be healthy? In life, we have lots of opportunity for expectations and lots of opportunity for expectations not to be met. Every situation we can imagine in this world is up for changing anytime. The people who died in 9/11 or during the coronavirus pandemic never thought in a million years that's how they were going to die. Talk about expectations. For most of us, we assume and hope that how we live now, if we like it, will continue. And if we don't like our current situation, then we hope or expect it will change for the better. We know that everything is up for grabs. Life and all that is in it is subject to change. And when expectations are not met and we're attached to them, or we cling or we grasp at them, then we get triggered. When we get triggered, we feel fear, anxiety, irritation, all those undesirable states of mind. And when life is filled with uncertainty or impermanence, we're set up for a vicious cycle. Situations or thoughts occur, we get triggered to feel anxious, it becomes a habit. How do habits work? In some countries, they raise elephants domestically. And if you take a baby elephant when it's growing up and you tie a thick rope around its neck and tie it to a big tree, it learns very quickly where it can and cannot go. And as it grows up, you don't need the thick rope. You could put a little long piece of dental floss and tie it around a tiny little bush, and the elephant will not leave the area around the tree. The elephant has been easily habituated from when it was younger to stay where it is. In this analogy, we are the elephant. It's a good image to have in your mind when we think about breaking a habit. So, what are our options? Okay, let's make some progress here. Well, one option is do everything we can to keep our situation stable or the status quo. And when a surprise pops up or there's a hole in the dam, well, then we run to plug it up. Another hole pops up, plug it up. Lose a job, relationship, finances change, health is at risk. We run to fix it. Martha, am I going too fast for you? I just realized this is being translated. If it is,
very, very fast.
Okay, I'll slow down.
I'm doing my best,
Okay,
but it is quite fast.
Okay, I will absolutely slow down. Okay, so sometimes we succeed and we get our lives back to normal. So these things happen. The more we are attached or the more we cling to keeping our situation the same or fixing it, the more fear, panic, anxiety we will experience until it is fixed or not. I'm going to say it again. The more we are attached or the more we cling to keeping our situation the same or fixing it, the more stress, panic, anxiety we will experience until it is fixed or not. We will feel that stress or anxiety feeling until we fix the problem or it goes away. And sometimes we can't fix the situation to the way it was before. And sometimes we feel stress and then we realize there were never any holes in the dam to begin with. We just thought there were. It can be very uncomfortable in these states of uncertainty as we search around to solve whatever problem has just jumped out at us. The problem with this option is if everything is always subject to change, then for the rest of our lives, we are in a never-ending cycle of trigger, stress, search for a fix, trigger, anxiety, search for a fix. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that if you lose your job, just sit back and don't look for another one. Of course, many issues that arise can and should be addressed. What I am suggesting is that our operating system of being strongly attached to an outcome and then experiencing anxiety and fear until we fix the problem is not viable, it's not healthy, it's not a happy approach. Next, while we run around trying to fix these issues, a little bit slower, Martha, sorry. When we run around trying to fix these issues, what do we do to improve our state of mind? Sometimes nothing. Sometimes we ignore the problem. Sometimes we blame others. That's a good one. Sometimes we just get angry. Sometimes we take medication, take a pill. Sometimes we complain a lot to ourselves, whoever's around us. Sometimes we use alcohol or drugs. So That's some of the things we do to try to improve our state of mind while we're running around. There's healthier responses: meditation, physical exercise, therapy. But you can't go running at 2 a.m. when you wake up with your heart racing, and not everyone can run or swim or exercise. Can't meditate at work, maybe not hard to do while you're driving. Therapy can help. Depends on the therapist, how often you go, money. Medication combined with therapy can be very, very helpful. So option 1 is experience stress until it is fixed. Option 2, learn to experience the change that was thrust upon us without the stressful reaction. Kind of like that guy climbing up El Capitan. Not fearful, no stress, just in the zone, just doing it, doing what he's been practicing. More like, I was just laid off or my insurance was canceled. I don't really like that. I don't like what's going on now. It's very important. I need to address it and pay attention, but I can look for a solution without the baggage of anxiety and fear. And I may not be able to fix it exactly the way I would like. That's okay too. I'm going to be open, curious, and flexible to find a solution without being angry, fearful, or stressed. Possible? That's what we're going to look into. Martha, is that speed okay?
Yes, it's much better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So, short recap. Life is uncertain. Only thing you can do is control your state of mind. Meditating 15, 20 minutes a day is great if you do it. Helpful. May not be enough to help us deal with the daily stressors the rest of the time. Stress comes to us when things around us change, external trigger, or thoughts trigger us to feel stress and anxiety, internal. And when we are attached or grasping to keep our lives a certain way, when change hits us, we can feel a lot of stress, anxiety, and fear. Or we can retrain ourselves to not be sucked into a vicious cycle. Triggered habitual stress doesn't go away so easily. We don't have the tools to handle it. The more it grips you, the more it's likely to grip you next time as well. Vicious cycle, time to break it. This is about reviewing the tools that we can use, practicing them, and understanding why they work. And then they are yours, and then you are in control of how you feel. Okay, we're going to do something called a snap meditation. It takes less than a minute, and I'll tell you why a little bit later in the presentation. So if you don't know how to meditate, I'm going to give you the directions. If you do, no problem. Like I said, now I have about 55 seconds left. We're just going to sit up nice and tall, be nice and relaxed. We're going to close our eyes, and we're just going to observe our breath. Any part of the breath you want, coming in and out of the nose, rise and fall of your abdomen. It's about 40 seconds left, and if you get distracted, no problem. Just go right back to observing your breath, and I'll be silent for the next 30 seconds. Okay, very slowly. Open your eyes and come back in. I'm going to do 1 or 2 more of those later on, and once again, I'll explain why as we go. So, some quick science. Fear and anxiety is something every human being, and for that matter, every living being experiences. It is very uncomfortable. It can last moments. It can last a lifetime. It impacts every aspect of our lives, our sleep, our interactions with others, how we feel about ourselves and others, our diet, our mental and physical health, and the list goes on. It impacts our loved ones, friends, colleagues, not just our mental health, our physical health. So the quick science of it is our mind gets triggered by something, and based upon our habitual response and our genetics and our upbringing, we create a stressful event for ourselves. What happens is When we start experiencing stress, there's adrenaline in your body, increases your heart rate, elevates your blood pressure, boosts your energy supplies. Cortisol, primary stress hormone, increases sugar in the bloodstream, enhances your brain's use of glucose, increases the availability. Yes?
Slower.
Sorry. Cortisol increases the availability of substances that repair tissues. It curbs functions that would be non-essential or detrimental in a fight or flight situation. When you are stressed, certain parts of your system turn off. Digestive system, reproductive system, growth processes. So, the lion is chasing the giraffe in the wild, or chasing the lamb. What happens to the giraffe? Adrenaline kicks in for the giraffe. Cortisol kicks in for the giraffe when the giraffe's being chased. Guess what else happened? All the other systems shut down. They're not necessary. The giraffe's reproductive system, digestive system make not a bit of difference when they're being chased by the lion, so they shut down. All energy, all focus goes towards survival. The natural stress response goes to 1,000, goes to 1,000,000. Now, what happens if the giraffe lives? Systems go back to normal pretty quickly, actually within minutes. Once a real or perceived threat is over, hormones normalize. They come back to normal. Normal heart rate, normal blood pressure, and other systems resume normality. What happens to humans when we get triggered by a divorce or a job loss or something else, or something minor, something major? Same thing. Cortisol, adrenaline go way up, and our other systems start to shut down. Now, what's the difference between us and the giraffe? The perceived threat for us does not pass quickly. It might take a while to get a new job, so we stay stressed. Or we're triggered by some other thought. How I should have handled that job better, the relationship, I should have done it this way, so we get stressed again. Or we perceive there's some other surprise lurking around for us around the corner. What's going to happen now? Whoa, I lost my job, now what? So we get stressed again. If you constantly feel under attack, that fight or flight reaction stays turned on. So what does this do for your health? Well, overexposure, cortisol, other stress hormones, guess what? Anxiety, depression, heart disease, et cetera, et cetera. If you look all the way on the bottom of the slide, 75 to 90% of all doctor's office visits are stress related. That kind of tells you the story right there. So what's the time span of an emotion like anger? Well, this neuroscientist says the time span of an emotion, the time we get stressed, adrenaline kicks in, we have heat in the face, we're tight, we're rapid heartbeat, all that stuff, from start to finish, she says, takes 90 seconds. Okay, well, if that's true, my question for you is, when was the last time you experienced an emotion for only 90 seconds and then went about your life? Rare, right? So what are these emotions, or why do they hang around? Okay, your turn. If she says it lasts 90 seconds, but you and I don't have that experience, then why do these undesirable states of mind hang around? Anyone want to jump in there into the chat and share your thoughts?
I think it's because we practice it so much that it becomes a habit.
Exactly. Absolutely. It turns into a habit. So, and one of the habits is we tell ourselves stories, or we cling to Ale Lopez. Perfect. We cling to them. We upset. Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Absolutely right. I don't know if everyone can see those notes, but chats. Absolutely right. They stay around because we obsess about them. We hold on to them. We tell ourselves stories that support our identity, our ego, who we think we are. And those stories keep us in the stress zone. It's our habitual way, just like Martha said. It's our habit of dealing with the trigger. These stories prop us up. We want to justify what we're feeling. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Martha, how are you going to translate that into Spanish?
That's a difficult one, actually.
Okay.
I'll do my best.
I should have, I would have, I could have. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. The ego, our identity, wants to strengthen itself by being right and making someone else or a situation wrong or unfair. And that props us up. Well, my next question is then, well, if that's true, then why don't we just stop doing that? Just stop. Stop with the stories. I'm going to tell myself, stop with the stories and move on. No problem. Class is over. There's your answer. 90 seconds, you start telling stories to yourself. Stop. Stress is gone. Well, how come we don't stop? Because if you got 20, 30, 40 years of telling yourself these stories, you don't even know you're doing it. We are wired to keep our identity intact. Telling ourselves these stories about why we're right keeps the identity intact and keeps our emotions alive. The more we repeat the stories to ourselves, the harder it is to stop doing it. The odds are against us. To make things even worse, this psychologist Rick Hansen says, the mind is like Velcro for negative experiences. Holds on to it. And Teflon for positive ones. Our mind is wired to buy into our own negative experiences and almost ignore our positive. So growing up as a child, these stories are how we dealt with triggers and helped us to survive. And when we're used to feeling a certain way, you're likely to continue to feel that way. The nerve pathways that correspond to anger get stronger. So it becomes easier for those emotions and the stories associated with them to hang around. It's almost a form of karma. When I shoot someone with a gun, never done that, this is how karma works. I'm more likely to be in an environment in the future where a shooting takes place. I'm more likely to be shot, and I'm more likely to shoot someone again. So that's what happens with these stories. Brief recap. So our physical responses, they're unhealthy when the stress stays in the on position. The moment we are triggered by a stressful event, there is habituated thought process that takes over. It's biased towards the negative, and it strengthens itself each time you experience it. Where did we learn this habit or this defense mechanism? Well, we've been trained by our family, our culture, our genetics, our previous lives, our friends, our environment. Just like the elephant and the rope, can change his understanding of the world. Habituated. So 15 minutes a day of meditation, great. Not enough in today's world, in my opinion. Okay, here we go. Second snap meditation, then we'll talk about why we're doing it. So sitting up nice and tall, comfortable, nice and relaxed. We're going to close our eyes. We're going to observe our breath. And if thoughts come in and start distracting you, no problem. Just go back to observing your breathing. And I'll start talking again in about 30, 40 seconds. Okay, you can slowly open your eyes again. So why do we do these SNAP meditations? Well, it helps us to train our mind to change quickly, which will translate to choosing to lose our anger or stress quickly. It allows us to stop the storytelling quickly. You'll see why later on in the presentation. So the good news is we are all in agreement that this habitual situation is not acceptable. I don't need that. I've had enough of that in my life. And that's why I'm a student of this topic, fear, anxiety, and stress, and how to work with it and deal with it. We're going to go through a set of techniques, practices, teachings that are geared specifically to break this habit. And many of these teachings have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years, so there's a good track record. The goal is to give you tools that you can pull out anytime you need them, and you need them, and apply them. Any one tool by itself, okay. But if you have a lot of tools, you can do anything. And if we train ourselves for the tools to work naturally, we can break the habit, reduce stress, anger, and fear. Now, before you judge any one tool, wait until you see the whole toolbox. And then eventually, with some practice, you'll have probably 2 or 3 favorites that you're going to use all the time. But it's good to know what antidotes are available to you. So we're going to go through 8 or 9 of them. Practice them a lot, even on the small stuff, especially on the small stuff. The tendency when you are angry or stressed is what? It's to go back and repeat everything we've been doing for 20, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, whatever. We need to break it. We're going to break it on the small stuff, and then we can apply it on the big stuff. It's only done with practice over and over again, just like that guy climbing the mountain without ropes. So first we have to understand that the concept of neuroplasticity, it became a term in the 1960s, and it was thought initially only occurred with children. That was the thinking. And then it came alive as a result really of the Dalai Lama he started collaborating with a lot of scientists in the United States to study the brain. Monks started coming over to the United States. They hooked them up to MRI machines and all kinds of things, studying their brain. And scientists were able to prove that our brains, even at our old age, my old age, have the ability to learn new processes, not just children, but for everyone. So our neural networks are not hardwired. You can teach an old dog new tricks. So, brief warning, when we practice these now, or you go home and practice, start in simple situations. If you start to do it the moment you have a big upheaval in your life, it's kind of like, when you're lifting weights, you don't start with 150 pounds. You start with the 5-pounders, or you start with the pink ones or the light blue ones, and then you work your way up. We want to set ourselves up for success. You learn something new, start small, start easy, and then when you get better at it, sure, no problem, apply it to anything you want. Okay, so first one is an easy one, and it's really quite effective. Breathing and body connection, and we'll practice it in a few minutes. So we're going to start with the simplest one. When you notice that you're in an undesirable state of mind, you're stressed, we're going to observe the feeling. We're going to find one spot in our body that is tight or tense. And we're going to observe it and stay with it. And we're going to breathe into and out of the area where you feel the stress. So for me, I get it right here. And sometimes I get a very strong pulse, a beating of my heart rate in my abdomen. That's just where I get it. Everyone gets it differently. So when thoughts come into your mind about how to solve the situation, we're going to go back to observing the area in our body where we feel the stress. And we're going to stay with it. kind of like when we were meditating with our breath, just observing the breath back and forth, back and forth. It's a game. We're going to call it a game. Except this time we're going to connect the physicality of it, and we're going to identify. So before we do it, think of something that might have irritated or annoyed you today or yesterday. Caused you a little bit of stress. And if you can't think of anything, no problem. Then we're just going with your eyes open, your eyes closed. Probably easier to do it with your eyes closed. We're just going to breathe nice and easy as we start to observe. Find that stressful area in your body, usually in your neck. Even if you're not stressed, there's just a normal tightening there. I'm going to stop talking for about 20, 30 seconds while we just breathe in and out, while we observe the stress. Okay, you can slowly open your eyes. So, sounds simple, right? Sure. Easy enough. Breathe in and out of that spot. Nice, long, slow breathings in and out of that area. Any thoughts or comments or feedback? Simple enough. Did you have anything interesting or not interesting happen? Couldn't do it, loved it, hated it, didn't notice a difference? It's only 20 or 30 seconds. I'm not going to try to change the world in 20 or 30 seconds, but if you have any comments or feedback, feel free to type it in. So it's a very simple technique. Okay, felt it in the chest. Good. Well, not good, but sure. We're going to feel it. And don't be under any illusions that we're going to do any one of these techniques and all of a sudden it's gone. Right? We've been doing this 20, 30, 40 years, so it's not going to be right away. Now, it's interesting, Linda says, feels more relaxed. I did too. Interesting to me how within even these snap meditations, where we're meditating for 30, 40 seconds, how the body just we have the ability to just relax. So why does this technique work? Granted, we've only given it a shot for 20, 30 seconds, so hard to gauge whether it really works or not, but I think you probably believe that it works. But why do you think it works? Any comments, any thoughts?
Because we stop with the stories.
Right. So it breaks the habitual reaction. It stops the stories. Because while I'm doing this and breathing, I'm not thinking about the stories. And if I start thinking about the stories, I'm going to go back to doing this. I'm going to do this technique for 20, 30 minutes. No problem, if I have to. Thank you, Linda. We're focused on our body instead of what's bothering us. Absolutely. And Benjamin says, we acknowledge it. Yeah, I'm stressed. I feel it. I'm going to do something about it. We're breaking the habit. It teaches the body that it is okay. Thank you, Cynthia. It's our natural state to be okay. We're teaching that the body can calm itself, even if it's only for a short period of time. You get some degree of control that you won't be stressed forever. Calms the mind when the body calms, and vice versa. It gives a certain clarity of reality. And our reality is no more the stories. Our reality is now breathing and observing. And I'm not trying to de-stress. I'm not trying to do anything. All I'm doing is observing my breath. And that's really what I'm trying to do, is just observe. I'm not trying to release stress. It creates more stress. Just observing any spot that I feel stressful. And you're going to slow your breathing down intentionally. And it might be 1 minute, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour, whatever. No problem. It's a game. At first, just do it for a minute or two. It gives you a clarity of reality. Is it a snake or is it a rope? Well, when you're clear, you can tell what's what and act accordingly. So simple technique, Look at all the potential benefits. Does it work right away? Well, this is, we're in a class, you're home, it's Friday night. Some of you probably had a nice glass of wine. Anything works. It's great. But when we're stressed and we're angry, that's when we really need to apply this, and we're going to apply it in the small stuff before we try the big stuff. Now, how long does it take until you feel better? That's the common question I get when I teach this class. Well, how long does it take? Answer, don't know. Depends on a lot of variables from your past, from your habitual past. The important thing is not how long it takes. The important thing is that you're moving in the right direction. Even if it's only half an inch at a time. I'll share a personal story with you. In March, when the pandemic kicked in, we had laid off 95% of our company. And I remember waking up at 2 a.m. with my heart pounding wildly with a, I don't know, you call it a panic attack or something. I'd never had it before. And this is what I do. I love teaching about this stuff. This is great. And I remember saying to myself 2 things. One is, this feeling is never going to go away. If you ever have anxiety or a panic attack, you know that. I said to myself, this feeling is never going to go away. I'm screwed. And then I said to myself, I know what to do. This all happened very quickly. It was like 5 seconds. And I happened to do this technique. There are others. I happened to do this technique. And I remember after 3 minutes saying to myself, okay, this didn't do anything. And I told myself, yeah, it's only 3 minutes. And I kept doing it. I had faith in the technique. And I'd been teaching it for 30 years, but this was like off the charts. And I kept going and I kept going. And I remember after about 12, 13, 14 minutes, I felt totally normal. The problem was still there. We had a pandemic. We laid off a bunch of people, but I wasn't stressed about it. I was so normal. I looked back at how I felt 15 minutes ago, and I couldn't believe it. So it breaks the habitual reaction. It teaches the body that it's okay, that the body can heal itself. Or Cynthia says it comes back to our natural state. It's going to happen in 1 second, 15 seconds, 30 minutes, don't know, doesn't matter. The important thing is to go in that direction and to know that you won't be stressed forever. It calms the mind when the body gets calm and vice versa. Okay, so it's time for a commercial. The commercial is for meditation. So these techniques rely on your meditation practice. Doing these techniques in the comfort of your home, easy. Doing it when you're really stressed or angry, not so easy. But when you meditate daily, when you have some ability to focus your mind where you want to, many times you don't even know you're triggered and you walk around angry or annoyed all day. Maybe you get home and you go, why am I feeling so angry? Well, with daily meditation, you become sensitive to thoughts and emotions, so you know pretty quickly. When you meditate, you slow down your thoughts, you find space between thoughts, makes you more aware of thoughts, what we think about. We can go back and identify the thought that triggered the anxiety. And eventually, after you meditate a bunch, you do some of these techniques, you can actually see the trigger coming before it gets there. And you can make the choice to go in a different direction. Fork in the road, you can go the direction of less stress, or I can go the direction of more stress. It gives us basic control over our mind. It allows us to implement these tools. If I wasn't a meditator, I never would have taken the time out to do that effective technique when it was an extreme situation. And your meditation teacher will give you another 10,000 reasons, so meditation commercial is over. Tom Len Some of you may have heard Tonglen if you studied Tibetan Buddhism. Tibetan Buddhist practice called Tonglen, in English it means exchange oneself for other. It was developed by a Buddhist master named Atisha in the 11th century. You don't have to be a Buddhist to practice it. Jewish, Hindu, Christian, doesn't really matter. It's not a religious-oriented practice. It was initially only taught to advanced practitioners, and we're going to review a very, very simple version of it. Simple but effective. The advanced version is very interesting. If you want to read about it, go ahead, or find a teacher. But this is a simple version, but very effective. So most of the time when we do a breathing exercise in yoga class, what do? We inhale the positive and we exhale the toxic energy. We inhale the bright light and we exhale the darkness, the fog, right? Inhale the positive, exhale the negative. You see that in pranayama, those of you that have done yoga, Anu yoga, we do that, right? Tonglen is different. Tonglen is also breathing based, and here are the basic directions that we're going to go through. So we're going to do a total of 3 sets, that's 3, not this, that's not 3. 3 sets of breathing, 3 sets. And the first set is going to have 3 breaths in it. So set 1 has 3 breaths, set 2 has 3 breaths, set 3 has 3 breaths. So it's a total of 9. Set 1, set 2, set 3, and each one has 3 breaths in it. And what we do here is we're going to identify the stressful feeling you have. So this is a little different. Before we identified the physical stress, where do I feel it? Now we're going to identify, I'm feeling anger, I'm feeling annoyance, I'm feeling irritation, I'm feeling stress, whatever it is. We're going to identify that feeling, and when we inhale, we're going to imagine that we are inhaling that feeling. And when you exhale, we're going to exhale something pleasant for yourself. So for example, when I do this, I'll inhale, I'm angry, I'll inhale, and then I'm going to exhale and I'm going to imagine myself lying on a beach. And I'll do that 3 times. You might hate the beach. So inhale, a stressful feeling, anger, jealousy, whatever it is, and you'll exhale. Maybe for you it might be the smell of a great cup of coffee, the smile of your child, the smile of your mother, whatever it is that works for you. That is set number 1. We're not doing it yet. We're just going to walk through the different sets. Set number 2, guess what? We're going to inhale the feeling that we're experiencing, that anger, that stress, that jealousy, whatever, annoyance. And on the exhale, we're going to exhale something pleasant for someone else that we like. Could be a family member, loved one, doesn't have to be. And something that they like. They might like a pina colada. They might like flowers, whatever it is that will put a smile on their face or just a good feeling for them. And the third set is optional. It's extra credit. Inhale the feeling you have now, that anger, jealousy, whatever it is, you can put a name to it, and inhale it and feel it. And when you exhale, you can exhale something pleasant for someone who irritates you. It could be even someone that caused the irritation, that triggered the irritation. So before we try it, let's think about something again that happened today or yesterday that got us angry or stressed. And then think about something that put a smile on your face, that would put a smile on your face. And now we're going to try it. And I'm going to walk you through it so you don't have to remember anything. You can always have a copy of this PowerPoint if you want, so you don't have to write it down. Don't worry about that. Later on, you'll need a pen and paper for something else, but for this, you won't need it. So once again, 3 sets. The first, there's going to be 3 inhales and exhales for each set. The first set, we're going to inhale that stress or anger or irritation or annoyance, find something. It's probably not hard to do. And we're going to exhale something pleasant for ourselves. So let all your air out. And then inhale. Inhale that feeling of anger that you felt earlier. And then exhale something happy and pleasant for yourself. Inhale the feeling you had earlier, annoyance, irritation. Exhale something happy for yourself. Third time, inhale that nasty feeling that you had earlier, and then exhale something happy. That's set one. Set two, same thing, exhaling something happy for someone else. Inhale that annoyance, that irritation, that anger, and then exhale something happy for someone else. Inhale again, that feeling of aggravation that you had or stress, and exhale, smile on someone's face that you love. Third one, inhale, and then exhale something beautiful for someone you like or you love. Okay, we're going on to the third set, extra credit. Whole air out, and then inhale something that was bothering you, and then exhale something happy or a smile for the person that you don't like too much. Inhale again. Exhale something positive for someone else. Last one, inhale something that bothered you, annoyed you, and then exhale something happy for someone else. Okay, so you can open your eyes. So I would love to get your feedback. What do you think? It's a good technique. We're inhaling something bad, exhaling something good. What's your feedback? If it worked, great. If it didn't work, that's okay. You did it. What did you think? What were you? How does it feel? How did it feel? Surprisingly good. I know, it is pretty surprising. Sense of relief, good. Okay. And by the way, I'm very happy when I get positive feedback. I feel great about positive feedback, so keep it coming. But negative feedback is also part of reality. So I used to teach this class to a similar class to doctors and nurses and psychiatrists and social workers and psychologists, and 60, 70% said, oh, this is great, oh my God, what a great technique. And there was always people that said, no, didn't do anything. Perfect, because that is reality. Reality is these techniques are wonderful. And if you get positive experience, great. But what I'm trying to present here is something that you're going to do for the long term. We don't break a habit, but with one positive experience. Feel lighter, really good. Yeah. So why do you think it worked for any of the people that had a positive experience? And for those that didn't have a positive experience, that's okay. There are other techniques you can use, and you can even use this one over and over and over again until you do get a positive experience. So I'm not worried about it. And I'm not selling anything today. Okay, good. Imagining something good for someone I love, felt relief. Well, felt relief from what? Felt relief from the stress or the anger or the annoyance that you had. Linda, if I can ask you, feel free to chat, or you can turn your microphone on. Were you imagining when you inhaled something annoying or negative, or if you can share it with us? Doesn't have to be the specific, but were you feeling anger, stress, fear, anxiety, jealousy? Can you?
My cousin and I were discussing our bills this afternoon, and when I was thinking of something happy for her, kind of felt like a relief of not thinking about that, thinking about something happy for her happening. So it kind of made that go away, and thinking about something happy for her made the other thing just disappear. I wasn't thinking about the bills and stuff. I was imagining us both in Maine when we were on vacation, when we were both happy.
Thank you. So I'll tell you the feedback I usually get, okay, when I teach this. I'm not sure who here practices any Eastern spirituality, whether it's Buddhism or Hinduism or whatever. But the feedback I usually get when I teach this to a more of a Western audience is, we're inhaling something bad and exhaling something good. That's crazy. I don't want to do that. Inhaling bad, exhaling good. I'm not doing that. How could that possibly be good? And I've heard that a lot. So what's up? Why are we doing this? And the answer is because what we're really doing, the key word for me here is transformation. We're breaking a habitual reaction and we're transforming. We're focusing on our breath so we're in the moment. That automatically puts the brakes on the feeling you have. And when we help others, we feel better. When we help ourselves, we feel better. We're actually transforming negative into positive, and we're doing it pretty quickly in a very short period of time. It reduces the attachment to our anger or whatever we're feeling, right? I'm not here to say, you lost your job. That's horrible. Let's talk about how to get another job. I can do that, but that's not what this course is about. This course is about, I'm angry, I'm stressed, I'm anxious about something that happened, and I'm telling myself these stories I don't even know I'm telling myself, and I'm spiraling downwards. So this kind of technique reduces the attachment to that feeling, that state of mind, and it makes our mind more malleable, more flexible, so that we train ourselves to change our state of mind pretty quickly. So the key word here is transformation. That's why we do the SNAP meditations. It's training ourselves like that. When I said, hey, guys, we only have a minute. Guys, we only have 50 seconds. Guys, we only have 40 seconds left. Everyone, I'm sure, goes, I got to go to my breath now, because I don't know who here meditates an hour a day or half hour a day, but a lot of times you have that hour, half hour, or 20-minute meditation, you have time to get into it. Guess what? When I'm feeling crappy, I don't have time. I want to get rid of that now, the feeling, because I can. And then I'll deal with the situation. So it's a wonderful technique to learn how flexible we are and how we can change our states of mind. Transformation. Okay, skillful self-talk. Now, skillful self-talk, we are not trying to solve the problem that has arisen. This is about our state of mind. So this is where you get to become your own therapist and save $200 an hour. Or you become someone else's therapist and you can charge $200 an hour. Okay, either one is good. So examples, you're stressed about the future and your mind is going through all worst case scenarios and we're spiraling downwards, right? Common situation, especially in today's environment. So we're going to read, repeat, understand, practice, and believe. Read, repeat, understand, practice, and believe the following. Given the infinite, truly infinite, I'm not saying that to make a point. I'm saying that because it's true. Given the infinite possibilities of the future, how can you possibly predict the future? You just don't know. Or as Lama Lanang says, the past is history, the future is mystery, right? Those of you that are students of his have heard that. And when you take it to heart, when you're starting to, the stories are going, right? And you're thinking about, well, if I don't get this, then, and if I don't get the job, and I just spent money and I can't believe it's spent, and and in 2 months I'm not going to be able to, before you know it, boom, you're out there. So there's billions of possibilities of what can happen. Don't know. You just don't know. Another one that comes from the Zen world, not happening now. Sounds like Zen, right? Not happening now. I repeat these phrases quite a bit. If you're serious about breaking the habit, what you'll notice is that you'll take your 2 or 3 or 4 favorite techniques and you'll just do them naturally throughout the day. Little stuff, big stuff, little stuff, big stuff, no problem. Why? It cuts the stories. It stops the stress. It stops the anger. And then you deal with the situation with joy, possibly. You'll find out, maybe. So you can repeat any one or all of these phrases, memorize them, repeat them over and over. So when the time comes, one of these or all of these automatically pop into your mind and put things in perspective. Simple technique. Why does it work? Breaks the habit at the moment. Brings the mind into play as well. Because now, we're in reality now. When I'm telling myself these stories, the shoulda, woulda, coulda, should've, would've, could have, Spanish speakers, when I'm telling myself those stories, that's not reality, my friends. That's something else. Or when I'm going back, oh, I did this, I could next, that's not reality. Reality is we don't know what's going to happen. So if you do these types of things, these self-talk phrases once, how much impact do you have? Well, maybe little, maybe none. Story I tell, when the pandemic, story I tell is when the pandemic is over, I plan on going to the gym. I'm going to work out in January. I'm going to work out once. And then I'm going to go again in March. I'm going to work out once in March too. Boy, am I going to get strong. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. If I want to work out, I want to get healthy, I want to get stronger. Once a month, not happening. Same with these techniques. If you put a little drop of water in the bucket, you look in the bucket, you can't even see the drop of water. Second drop, third drop, fourth drop, 50, 100, and all of a sudden you look in the bucket of water, I got some water going on here. Same thing here. You need to practice these things with the small stuff, and then eventually the big stuff. Okay, I've been walking around with this slide in my head for 20 years. It's called the worry bar chart. So the big, tall, blue bar on the left, by the way, you see, I don't know if you see, it goes up through the slide and it goes all the way up through the clouds. And it goes actually all the way past Venus and Mars, wherever they are. And that bar represents all the things we worry about. And the little teeny tiny bar on the right there, I don't know if you can see that. Those are all the things we worry about that actually happen. Okay? Open to questions about that bar chart. Feel free to walk around with that bar chart in your mind as well. Okay. Name it. Name it. So when feeling an undesirable state of mind, call it a name. Name it out loud. I feel fear. I am angry. Whatever it is, you just name it and you express it verbally. Not in your mind. We already know you can't trust your mind, right? Saw a bumper sticker the other day. Don't believe everything you think. So same thing here. You have to name it and you have to name it out loud because your mind, until it is trained, is not to be trusted. I feel fear. And then the part 2, I should have, instead of bullet points there, I should have number 1, number 2. Part 2, step 2, reassure yourself with kindness and compassion as if you were talking to yourself as a child. Because all this stuff didn't start yesterday. It started way back when. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So we can say, I am jealous. I know how to handle jealousy. That's something that it's in my mind and I can work with it. And it may have served me well a long time ago when I developed the habit, but it doesn't serve me well now. So you name it, and then you reassure yourself with something that's very simple. It's as if you were talking to your 5-year-old self. 5-year-old child comes home angry, and you say, well, you listen, you say, okay, great. Well, anger doesn't really help you. We're going to find a solution to that problem, but anger just makes you feel worse. So you're talking to your 5-year-old self. Compassion. I know it sounds simplistic, but if you can do it on a regular basis, it will be effective. Why does this work? You should know the answers by now. I gave you all the answers. It breaks the habit. It gives it a name and brings it to the surface. Someone said, I think Benjamin said something. Yeah, Benjamin said before, we acknowledge it. It gives it a name, brings it to the surface. It's no longer in our mind. And it's a recognition of what you are feeling. It identifies it. It can also help realization that the feeling is ephemeral. It's passing through. It's okay to feel fear. And it's okay to reassure ourselves about how you feel. Ignoring it doesn't work. So it's a good one to try. Okay. Understand how to look at the future. You're stressed about the future. Your mind's going through all these worst case scenarios and spiraling. We're going to broaden our view of the future. We're going to review thousands of things that might happen. Some good, some bad. What does impermanence mean? Well, we all know to some degree what this means, and it means everything changes every moment. Nothing stays the same. It does not mean things will get worse or fall apart. Some people, that's their view. Oh, everything's impermanent. That means everything's going to fall apart. That's not what impermanence means. It just means things will change. Will they change for the better, for the worse? Who knows? You never know. In fact, when you focus on the worst case scenario, guess what? I don't know if anyone here, we're in California here. I don't know where you guys are, but those of you from the East Coast, you ever go skiing, on the slopes, in the snow? So what does the ski instructor tell you when you're skiing down the mountain? They tell you, first lesson, don't look at the trees. Why? Because where you look, that's where you're going. So we have to broaden our view of the future possibilities, go over thousands of possibilities that might happen. What you focus on, you become. How many times has something seemingly bad happened, and then some good or amazing thing comes out of it that you never would have imagined? Happens all the time. So, best to contemplate the true meaning of impermanence, which is everything changes. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. And sometimes it seems like it's bad, but it turns out to be okay. So you can look around all day and you can contemplate impermanence, things changing, small, large, very helpful. Not just the worst case scenario. It's never a good thing. So Thich Nhat Hanh, a famous Zen master, some of you may know him, I love this quote, "Thanks to impermanence, everything is possible. Life itself is possible. If a grain of corn is not impermanent, it can never be transformed into a stalk of corn. If the stalk were not impermanent, it could never provide us with the ear of corn that we eat." So it doesn't mean things will get worse or fall apart. It means things will change, and you can count on that. So contemplating impermanence, why does this work? It breaks the cycle of incorrect thinking. Incorrect thinking, sorry, I may have missed something. Yeah, and incorrect thinking are the thoughts that trigger the stress event. Realization and understanding that stressing now is not appropriate given the thousands of possibilities out there, I can't possibly predict the future, but I can predict that things will change. It's another phrase that I've heard some people use. This is temporary, this is temporary, this is temporary, this is temporary. So knowing and reminding yourself of this is very helpful because it's true. You're not stuck in any one situation. Attachment is based on things going a certain way. And impermanence reminds us that things change. Hardwired versus neuroplasticity. So when you're tired of repeating the same habitual reaction, remember a few things. They're habitual. I've been pre-programmed to do this since I was a child. It's hardwired for now. This is not a conscious or random event to feel this way. It's how I've trained myself. And if you can train yourself one way, you can train yourself to reprogram as well. This lets you know that what's going on, it lets you know what is going on and have the ability to identify it and do something about it. When you're clear, and maybe even joyful and not stressed, that's the best time to deal with these situations. That's the best time to be productive about getting a new job, about dealing with a personal relationship, not when you're crazed. So we can identify it and do something about it. Our brains have the ability to learn new processes. Neural networks are not hardwired. You can teach an old dog new tricks if the dog is motivated. Dog's not motivated, not going to get new tricks. So here's another one of my favorite ones. Doesn't work for all stressors, but some of them. When I get triggered, I ask myself, will you be thinking about this 3 to 6 months from now? Loved one, someone at work was rude. Well, I can get pissed off about it all day. I can say, in 3 to 6 months from now, who cares? Let's move on. So in most cases, you won't. So that's a favorite of mine, to ask myself that question. Give us a perspective on what's going on. Some of the things we get stressed about are just stupid. It's a technical term. Okay, be grateful. Well, be grateful. I'm angry. What am I grateful for? Well, be grateful that you're experiencing an opportunity to learn and change your habitual reaction. Without it, how are you going to learn how to handle it and change? Now, we all have this illusion that, well, if I can only get the job, if I can only get the money, then I'll be happy. I was talking to a guy, a psychologist. He said that he had a patient who was a billionaire. And he was living next, and he was upset about something, I think financial issues, believe it or not. And he said, I was talking to my neighbor, and my neighbor, we were talking about his net worth. My neighbor's net worth was only 20 million. And I said to myself, how does the guy live? How can he live there? $20 million. I can't understand it. So it's like, this guy's a billionaire. He's in therapy for financial issues, So my point is, yes, we want to solve these issues. Jobs, lost your health insurance, things happen, of course. But some of the things we think about are really not, don't really need to get stressed and angry about. So we have to be grateful because we have the opportunity to learn how to break that habit and reduce the reaction that you have, lose the attachment. This makes you realize that it's part of life and can be viewed in a positive things. These triggers happen. Even death can be very sad, but one can also have a positive, joyful, beautiful response at the same time that you feel sadness. I know it doesn't feel that way, but it can be. And sometimes you only realize that afterwards. So how much will feeling grateful make you feel better? Initially, not very much, but over time, there's more drops of water in the bucket. So whatever situation you're dealing with, something comes up, you can roll your eyes and go, okay, well, I have an opportunity to practice to change my habit now. Thank you. It's a great way to practice patience, equanimity, self-love, self-compassion. Okay, here's the next one. Tell me if anyone recognizes this one. The conflict is in your mind. It's another one from Lama Lanang. It's a mantra. The conflict is in your mind. In many, many cases, when the issue is truly something that is only in your mind, some would say that that's the case almost all the time. But certainly in many interpersonal relational issues. I don't like the way she spoke to me. I'm annoyed and irritated about it. Yeah, well, guess what? Conflict's in my mind. The plumber came and fixed the faucet. He overcharged us to fix the sink. I feel ripped off. Conflict's in your mind. I read the news today and got really angry. Where's the conflict? It's in my mind. So you have the choice on how you react or not. It's up to you. There's a famous Lama, Mingyur Rinpoche, from a family of very famous Lamas. Tells a story about one of his brothers who was a monk in a monastery in the city environment, and it was very noisy there. And they all came home, and the family was sitting around, and his brother was really upset and annoyed about how noisy the situation was at his monastery. At which point his father, who was a very famous learned Lama, asked his son, if you can't handle the noise in the city, how are you going to be able to handle the bardo? So, now I know some folks don't know what the bardo means, and I'm not going to get too deep into it, but it's Buddhists believe that when we die, before we move on to being reincarnated, we go through a period called the bardo. It's a gap in between our lives. So without getting into details, it's basically saying the bardo is a place where, well, I'm not going to get into too many details. So I see two things about this comment for those of you that know what the bardo is. The first comment is the bardo can be a scary, loud place, and it's a reflection of our mind. So, okay, that makes sense. I thought of something, and I've been thinking about this now for probably about a year, that comment that his father, famous Rinpoche, told his son, if you can't handle the noise, how are you gonna get through the bardo? So my second comment is, and I apologize if you're a non-Buddhist, but just bear with me. It can also refer to what part of us reincarnates. At its very simplest level, our habits reincarnate. What habits? Our good habits, our bad habits. I'm not talking about taking out the trash on a regular basis. I'm talking about our habitual responses in life. That's what reincarnates into your next life, including our habit of reacting with anger, stress, anxiety. Now, what about people that don't have any habits? Well, who are they? Those realized beings, those Buddhas. They don't have habits, so they don't get triggered. They don't experience fear. So if you can't handle the noise in the city, how are you going to be able to handle the bardo? Guess what? Think about it. The conflict is in your mind. Okay. Real but not true. Real but not true. Story by a different Lama, a story by Tsoknyi Rinpoche, another famous Lama. He was crossing a bridge with a group of people, and the bridge had a glass bottom. Thousands of people cross that bridge every day. But when it was his turn to cross the bridge, he couldn't. He was on his knees in panic mode, huge anxiety. Couldn't believe it. Little by little, he was able to do it, but he found the experience to be an amazing teaching, which of course benefits us. What he was experiencing was real panic, real anxiety, but the reality of it was not true. The bridge was safe. Thousands cross, nothing bad happens. What this means is that while thoughts are really happening, and there's a real biochemistry that accompanies them, they're only representations in our mind. They are not the experience of that living moment. Our thoughts are not necessarily a reflection of reality. Real, but not true. Okay. Remain like a piece of wood. Great man Shanti Davis said that a long time ago. It's a preemptive tool. When one sees one's mind to be attached or repulsed, then don't speak. Don't act. Be like a piece of wood. In an argument, not happy with someone, well, you can go sniping back and forth and bickering. I don't know if there's a word for that in Spanish. I'm sure there is. Then best not to say anything at all. Remain like a piece of wood. It's a preemptive strike against your habitual reaction. When you do that, you stop putting fuel on the flame. Breaks the habitual reaction. So that works when someone irritates or annoys you. They irritate and they annoy you. Guess what? The conflict is in your mind. Don't make it worse. Don't feed the fire. One of my teachers used to say, you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Comes into my mind all the time. And I say to myself, I want to be happy. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Or, I want to be happy. We'll just do it. We'll do it that way. No problem. How do you remember all these? Well, you'll have this PowerPoint if you want it. No problem. We just have one or two more techniques to go. But you just have to do it. You have to use it. You can make little Post-its for yourself, put it on your computer, on your refrigerator. We are training to break our habitual reaction. Okay, traditional mantras, I can't leave those out. A mantra is a word or a sound that you repeat to help us concentrate in meditation. There's also symbolism involved in spirituality. I'm not going to get into it, but it's for any religion. So if you're a Buddhist, you can say the Tara mantra. If you're Christian, you can say, here's an example, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And you just repeat it slowly over and over and over again. You can use imagery if you want. If you're Jewish, you can recite the Shema, which is a prayer. Once again, we are interested in breaking the pattern. What pattern you say? The trigger and habitual response. We're breaking that. And we're doing it with really healthy ways to do it. It's about the amount and attention and focus and devotion you put into a mantra or a phrase that helps you break that pattern, and it helps you connect sometimes to a higher power that's within yourself or the universe or whatever you believe in. And when you're done repeating the mantra, you can repeat it 5 times, 10 times, 1,000 times, whatever, your mind will have shifted a little bit. And over time, if not immediately, the stressful feeling will have dissipated. Once again, drop of water in the bucket, little tiny drop, but over time, you have tons and tons and tons of drops.
I hope you don't mind. I've got to put the notorious RBG.
Okay, someone does not have their microphone on, and I'm going to let someone else take care of that. Someone has their microphone on, so if you can mute yourself, that'd be great. Okay, Lojong. So, great master Atisha from the 11th century was invited to Tibet to teach. And one story is told that he decided to take his Bengali, guy from Bengal, tea boy with him to make tea on a long trip because he really irritates Atisha, and Atisha wanted to practice his patience. So he brought this guy with him, and Atisha came up with 59 aphorisms. An aphorism is an expression of a general truth or a principle. And he developed these 59 aphorisms that when you study them over time, when a situation arises, the right one pops into your mind. So this is one of them. Drive all blame into one. What does this mean? What does this mean? What do you think it means? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Drive all blame into one. Your turn. Anyone want to take a guess? Jump right in there.
I just think it's a really beautiful one because it helps you focus on one single thing that is, you are the one to blame. So then everything seems simpler because you're stopping again the stories, right? So
I'm going to give you partial credit.
okay, I'll take it.
And what's interesting is that Martha knows so much more than I know. So I'm going to give you partial credit. So here's what it doesn't mean.
Morty, I'm really tired from translating, so give me a break. I'm not thinking so straight.
No problem.
I'm doing my best, but
You're
it's
doing
a
great.
beautiful aphorism.
I'm making your life harder because I talk from New York. I talk really fast. Here's what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean this is my fault. I'm responsible. I screwed up. That is not what this means. Drive all blame into one simply means I am responsible for my own state of mind. Drive all blame into one. But did you see what she said to me? Did you hear how he talked to me? Yeah. But so what? I'm responsible for my own state of mind. So that's a great phrase. Okay. Last one, and I'm happy to stay around and take some Q&A. This is my favorite. I saved my favorite one for last. It's a game called Requirements. You're going to need a pen and paper to play the game. You can play it on your computer if you want. I prefer pen and paper. And I learned this game from Charlotte Joko Beck. Charlotte Joko Beck was a great Zen master, lives in San Diego, woman. I learned from one of her students, and she was a phenomenal teacher. So there's two parts to this game. Part one, we're going to make lists. Great. And we'll talk about those lists in a second. And then part two, let's say with part one. Part one are lists. We have three lists here. List one, requirements as a child. What requirements? They are lists that you can add on to from now on. So you're going to start your list and you're not going to finish it for weeks. Okay? So list one, child requirements. You're going to write down everything that you were trained to be when you were a small child, either explicitly or implicitly. So Joko says, I quote her, a young child is just trying to make sense out of life. So naturally, the people she looks to are these big people that take care of her. And she's listening, and not just to how they tell her to be, but she's watching, absorbing, and learning. So everything we were trained to be when we were a child. So I'll give you some that were on my list. I was trained to be a good boy. I was trained to be quiet, be successful, be neat, get good grades, right? Sound familiar? In my family, don't be a big spender, be a saver. So these were requirements, right? Some things I was told explicitly, so you hopefully you're writing down now things that you were told or learned to be either clearly, explicitly, or you just kind of picked it up and absorbed it. So by now you should hopefully have 5 or 6 things on the list. So when I first started making my list, I had 5 or 6 things, and I said, okay, I'm done. And then 3 weeks later, I had about 30. So that's kind of where you're going to end up. What were you trained to be as a child? How were you trained and taught to act? I was trained to be a good girl. I was trained to do well in school. I was trained to be quiet. I was trained to fight. I was trained to compete. Whatever it was, start writing them down. I'll share some more with you while you're writing. I was trained, be like your brother and sister. I was trained, don't be too adventuresome. Stay close to home. I was trained, be on time. Fit in. Compete. Educate. So these are mine, right? You're going to have your own. And you're going to add to it over the next few weeks. And the list will grow. Does anyone want to share anything that's on your list? Any volunteers? You can chat or you can speak. You were trained not to be angry. You were, yeah, I know about it. Trained to be seen and not heard. Great. These are perfect requirements. Well, perfect for this exercise. Anyone else? Yeah? Be a good kid. Be a good listener. Be a good student. Eat your whole meal. Okay, great. Good. Make your list longer and longer and longer. Out of all the exercises we've done so far, this one is the best. I'm hoping you invest your time in this one, or all of them. Okay. Be obedient. Be a good sleep. Oh, this is exactly the list, right? Keep going. Don't stop there. Thank you. Not to cry. Yeah. Yep. There you go. You're starting. Okay. You're getting the point now. Okay. Keep your lists going. This is critical. Okay. Second list. You're gonna make a second list now. As an adult, what do you require or expect of yourself? As an adult, what do you require or expect of yourself? Okay, so while you're thinking about that, I'm going to share, thank you, Evan, that's a good one also. I know all about that requirement. I'm going to share with you some of my requirements that I have given myself as an adult. I was trained to be disciplined. Oh, Veronica, be respectful. That's going to come up pretty soon, but I've got that on my list as well. So as an adult, I was trained myself to be disciplined. Don't be fearful. I trained myself to be calm. There's a requirement. Work before play. Don't go playing until you finish your work. Be kind. Be successful. Thank you, Ale. I was trained, so I've got a list. I trained myself to always be fair. You have to be fair. Be patient, be neat, be fair. Someone's not treating you fairly, right? So second list, I hope you're working on it now. How you've trained yourself. What have you decided are, we'll call them requirements of yourself. And it could be different things than as a child. And it could be the exact opposite, right? So as a child, you were trained to be on time, but as an adult, you said, I'm going to train myself just to kind of be free and easy, or vice versa. So as a child, you were trained to be a quitter, not to be a quitter, but as an adult, you said, if something doesn't feel right, I'm going to stop doing it and go do something else. So you're now, right, exactly, good parent, good. Be successful. So now you have a second list, how you've trained yourself to be, who you've trained yourself to be as an adult. And once again, I'm not going to share all of them with you, but I've probably got 25 on my list. So you're going to start trained to be are you trained to be a good Christian? Did you train yourself to be like the other people that you grew up with? Et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So please continue to make your list. You have your list of child requirements that you picked up and absorbed, and a list of adult requirements. So, and there might be some things that are completely opposite on the two lists, right? Thank you, Laura. So what happens when an important requirement on your list is not met? So you were trained to be respectful. What happens when someone's not respectful to you? You are trained to, go to sleep early. What happens when someone goes to sleep? You were trained to be on time, but my wife is always late, so I'm late. What happens? You're trained not to be a quitter, but then the pandemic kicks in and you have to quit your job because you have to go take care of someone. Someone is not fair to you, or you're not fair to someone else, and fairness is on your list, and they're not being fair. What do you feel? What do you feel? There you go. Angry, frustrated, undesirable state of mind. So, yeah, you feel hurt. Absolutely. So, list 1 and list 2 represent your identity on how you view yourself, what you expect of yourself. And guess what? You're not even consistent. So we have these standards and these requirements that we've trained ourselves to be, and we're not even consistent. So how does that work? What's the right requirement here? Well, you feel like you're failing, says yeah, you're trained not to be a failure, or I feel like I'm failing. Right. So the third list, it's important, but not as important as the first 2 lists, is your reaction list. How do you feel when you have an experience where something happens that violates an important requirement? Not all requirements are important, but some of them are. So here's some examples. My colleague is rude to me. Someone is not fair to me in a business transaction. Someone close to me is irresponsible. I lose my patience. I train myself to be patient. Someone treats me unfairly. My success is threatened. I feel anxious, angry. So how do we use these lists? Okay, let's get to the point here. So the directions are, when we feel angry, annoyed, stressed, whatever, guess what we do? We practice that very first technique, the breathing body connection, where we inhale and exhale and feel the area where we feel the stress. And we inhale and exhale in that location for 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. And we all had that experience. And then the second thing you're going to do is you're going to identify what on the list requirement was not met. So, part 1, we practice the breathing body technique. Find the spot where you feel stress. I'm angry. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to breathe in and out of that stressful physical area. Great. Step 2, I'm going to look on my list. I don't have to look on my list. You can, but you know your list in your mind after you work hard on it for a few weeks, of what area, what requirement was broken. So, what do you learn from this? Well, you learn that as a result of your upbringing, your culture, your family, your genetics, we have created, in some cases, strong requirements of ourselves in our lives. It is impossible to meet these requirements that we have created for ourselves as a child or an adult. Impossible. I lost my job. Well, now I can't be successful or financially successful. My health changed. Well, I had a requirement to be strong. That got violated. My wife, my son, my colleagues were rude to me. Well, rudeness is wrong. Someone close to me is irresponsible. I'm not patient. So all these requirements, well, you have to develop your lists in the next few days. Look back at what you learned to be as a child, what was expected or required of you. And then as an adult, same thing. See how consistent you are. See what changes even day to day. Your requirements can change. Some of these things are really loosey-goosey. Be successful. What does that mean? For some people, you may never see yourself as successful, even though you've achieved great success. So some of these requirements are just so slippery slope. You're never going to, but you know what? We have them ingrained. And when we think they're violated, we get that stress. We're going to practice that technique. And then we're going to say, okay, what on the list was violated? Check the requirement that was being trampled on by you or someone else. And pretty quick, exactly, not white or black, lots of gray areas. Thank you, Linda. Pretty quickly, you realize it is impossible not to have requirements on your list violated. Impossible. And little by little, you start to see what your triggers are and understand that the self-identity, the stories, the requirements that you developed as you grew up as a child and as an adult are impossible to be perfect all the time. The self-identity, the list of requirements, the stories we tell ourselves, the justification, the excuses, Impossible. So it's called the requirements game. Well, how can you be on time if your car gets stuck in traffic? I get annoyed. Be strong, but then I get sick. It happens. Be financially successful. Pandemics happen. I'm angry because I have this requirement. Expectation. Requirements are conflicting. We set ourselves up for failure. Our standards are impossibly high. These lists make up who we think we are, our self-identity, our ego. The more important the requirement, the greater the attachment, the worse we feel when it's not met. So please develop your lists and use them. Step 1, do the breathing, inhale, exhale, nice long breaths. Observe what area of your body you feel the stress. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 seconds, doesn't matter. Part 2, interesting. What requirement was trampled on? I guess I was pretty attached to that fairness requirement. I guess I was pretty attached to being successful. I'm kind of successful. Slippery slope, as Linda says, not black or white, a lot of gray areas. So, second to last slide, and then we're at the end. So the requirements game. These are some quotes from Joko Beck. When you're in that moment, breathing in and out, observing your stressed area, here's a quote: "There's nothing to worry about. So in some odd way, it's the only place you ever are at peace." When we did these little tools, these little techniques, we weren't thinking about all these, our mind, the stories were not there. Where were we? We were in the moment, we were at peace. Quote, "People are always looking for the place where there will be peace, and it's, of course, always right under your nose." That billionaire guy, he's in therapy for financial stress. It's not funny, but it's funny. You know what? It's right under his nose because the conflict is in his mind. And he feels bad for his neighbor because his net worth is only $20 million. He says, how can he live like that? Last quote, "We tend to get these crises so we can learn. If you didn't get the crisis, you wouldn't learn. They show up right on schedule." So, okay, big recap, because we're at the end of the show. Triggers. So you can recap for me. What did you learn about triggers? It's good to know where they are. It's good to know when your lists are trampled on by you or someone else. It's good to observe the habitual reaction you develop over time. It's going to be great because the next few days, hopefully you'll get a little stressed, a little annoyed, a little angry, and something's going to click in your mind from this class. And you're going to either do a technique or you're going to say to yourself, I am sick of this. I don't want to live like this. So that's the key, is to and you can do that. The more you meditate, the more you'll realize, I'm angry, I'm annoyed, I'm stressed. You're going to start seeing it hopefully pop up, and you're going to pick a technique or two, or go back to the PowerPoint and kind of flip through it and go, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that one. Little by little, little by little. That's how you get good at it. It's great to observe the habitual reaction that you've developed over your lifetime. That's how you can stop it, by learning that you're doing it. There's a great quote by a meditation teacher, Tara Brach. "Any story you have about yourself is not the same of the reality of what you are." Any story you have about yourself is not the same of the reality of what you are. The reactions you have to stress or anxiety or fear, what worked growing up doesn't necessarily work now. Right? A child grows up in a household where, in order to be heard, he or she had to yell, scream, throw a tantrum. Then the parents would pay attention. Well, it worked then. It doesn't really work today. Not good for you, not good for those around you. So you can turn these antidotes into a game. You start with small stressors first. And by looking at your stress and tension through breathing, fear or anxiety stays with you less and less and less. And eventually you know what your triggers are. You know what your requirements are, and you see them coming before the trigger goes off. So you can apply the antidote before the anxiety kicks in. and if you find yourself stressed and angry and you go to yourself, oh, I can't believe that I got stressed and angry again. Well, guess what? It's a good thing, because now you have the opportunity to learn 20, 30, 40 years of this. I'm 62, of this kind of state of mind habit. It's not going away because you meditate once or twice a day for 10 minutes. It goes away when you're on it, with these types of techniques. It's not about winning or succeeding or fixing the problem or making more money or winning the argument. That is not the goal. The goal is about paying attention and staying with it and coming into the present moment, usually with your breath, and practicing these antidotes over and over again, first with the small stuff. That's it. And you don't have to be that good at it either. You just have to do it and be consistent at it. It's not easy. You have to be brave, but you're already brave because you showed up today. So you're all getting a grade, by the way, in today's class. I should have told you that. You're all getting graded. And here's how it works. You're going to give yourself your own grade. The way the grade works, it's the same as when I teach meditation. All the people in my meditation class, they get a grade. I'd say to them, here's the deal. If you go home and you meditate once a day, you get an A. If you do these techniques, you get an A. If you do the techniques a few times, you get an A+. If you meditate twice a day, you get an A+. Those are the grades. If you don't meditate or you don't do the technique, then you don't get a grade. There's no A, B, there's no B, C, D, F, there's none of those things. It's very simple. You either get an A or an A+, or you don't get a grade. As long as you do it, try it, it doesn't matter how well you do it. You get an A. That's the beautiful part of meditation. There's no such thing as a bit. You do meditate, you do any one of these techniques, even if you do it lousy, even if you don't remember exactly how that guy said to do it, no problem. You do it, you get an A. That's the beauty of it. Anyways, so I want to thank Lama Lanang for motivating and inspiring me to teach this class. May all beings benefit, and I'm happy to stay on. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to stay on and answer them. And if you want a copy of this PowerPoint, then you can email us at the email that's on our website. We're on our Facebook page. And maybe thank you, Linda. And I'll type out the email right now just so you have it. And once again, if you have any questions, I'll stay on for a few more minutes. I'm happy to answer them. Thank you, Edith and Veronica. Appreciate it. Yes, thank you. That's a good question. Is it going to be saved and put on the internet? I think the answer is yes. So we'll do our best. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay. Hi, Linda. Yes. If you email that email, will answer your question about starting meditation. We want to get a sense of where you're at, because you might want something that we're doing, or you might something that's maybe more, I don't know what your background is, but we definitely want something that's going to fit you. So send us an email and we'll definitely respond to that. Great. And Martha lasted through the whole presentation. Martha was phenomenal. Thank you so much, Martha. Couldn't have done it.
You're welcome. It was challenging, but it was fun. It was very fun.
Faster. Yeah,
you talk much faster than Lama, definitely.
Yeah, Benjamin, we're going to try to make it available online, correct? So just send us an email if you want to get a copy of the presentation or you want to get a recording, and we'll take care of that. Okay, everyone have a wonderful, safe evening, and I wish you well, and I hope you benefit, and I hope you do it, because I know it will. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.